Breaking away from the dollar, a move by the Brics Bank to finance debt in local currencies. Will it work for us? Human trafficking for sex and drugs, the dark side of South Africa's poverty crisis. Voting is underway in Zimbabwe. Bets are on that nothing changes. Hello, I'm Jane Dutton.
This is Eyewitness News.
Working on local solutions to kickstart BRICS economies, one of the many topics tackled during the second day of the summit with more than 40 world leaders. Brics Bank says it wants to increase local currency financing in South Africa and other developing countries. This is the practice of issuing long-term debt in the currency of the borrower's income instead of a foreign currency like the US dollar.
We try to make funding available at the lowest cost of funds, as I said earlier on, because that's really our value. Highly rated entity, low cost of capital. We can then provide funding at rates that are lower than what it would be if our countries raised it themselves. Because our countries, South Africa BB, Brazil BB flat, the bank 6-7 notches above that.
Russian President Vladimir Putin used his video address today to lash out at the West over sanctions. He says these, quote, illegitimate sanctions against Russia for its invasion into Ukraine are to blame for worsening the world's economic problems. Protesters out today are among the many who believe the opposite is true, that the war has exacerbated the world's trade and economic woes. President Cyril Ramaphosa says it's about time the African continent competes with major economies in the global arena as BRICS leaders discuss plans for inclusive global economic growth.
As South Africa, our position remains that diplomacy, dialogue, negotiation, and adherence to the principles of the United Nations Charter are necessary for the peaceful and just resolution of conflicts. We will continue discussions on practical measures to facilitate trade and investment flows through the increased use of local currencies. This is a matter we believe that further discussions need to take place, particularly amongst our finance ministers.
Electricity Minister Senzo Maya is expected to sign a joint memorandum with China today in hopes of boosting the country's generation capacity in the future.
The new development bank, also known informally as the Brics Bank, says it wants to increase its local currency financing initiatives in South Africa and other developing nations. Now, local currency financing is a process whereby a bank issues a long-term debt in the borrower's currency instead of maybe like a foreign currency like the US dollar or the euro. Now, this process allows the borrower to still be able to service their debts should an incident arise where their local currency depreciates or something happens. The vice president of the Brics Bank, Mr. Leslie Masdop, says they've been given explicit orders by their shareholders to take more risks in South Africa and other developing nations. Now, in another story, researchers from the University of Witwatersrand and the Bank of China produced a report on the confidence level that businesses in China have on South Africa. The Chinese Investors Confidence Index for South Africa finds that South Africa still remains a viable attraction for investors from China. Tabiso Goba, Eyewitness News, reporting from the 15th BRICS Summit in Sandton.
Choosing the next public protector. 8 candidates are being interviewed about why they should take on the job when Busisiwe Mqwebane's controversial stint is over. Former CEO of the South African Human Rights Commission, Tseliso Tsipanyani, says he believes he's got what it takes to turn around the embattled office of the public protector.
We really need to hit corruption, maladministration very, very hard. It takes the soul out of our people when they see people just getting away with wrongdoing, potholes, hospitals without beds, schools with broken windows. It really discourages people. This was the country which we fought for.
Practicing advocate Tommy Ntsewa says he doesn't believe the Public Protector's Office should give precedence to cases involving high-profile individuals. He's faced questions from MPs about his political leanings, having previously served as a legal and policy advisor to a former cooperative governance minister.
My sense is that there is no big or small case. Whether it's a case against the president or it's a case from a villager from Tanzania, so that you do not fall into the default of treating cases that involve high-profile people, with agency, and then in the process marginalize those of ordinary people.
Who do you want to be the fifth and next public protector? What qualities should they have? A human trafficking case involving 2 Cameroonian brothers and a Cape Town woman is back in court. The brothers, Edward and Yannick Ayuk, along with another accused, Leandri Williams, face more than 40 charges for allegedly trafficking women from Springbok and Upington and forcing them to use drugs and then work as sex workers in Brooklyn and Milnerton. Williams denied any involvement in human trafficking. She told the court she'd been a sex worker in Cape Town and in Springbok and that she'd been married to Edward Ayuk, but now they are separated. Williams detailed that sex work in Springbok is rife and it is the norm for the woman to come to Cape Town for work. Shoddy police work again, the focus in the Senzo Maya trial. The Pretoria High Court has now heard that no fingerprints were found on the door Maya's alleged killers apparently used to gain access to the house that night. Forensic officer Thabo Mosia previously told the court no fingerprints were taken from the door because it had been used by so many different people. But under cross-examination by defence advocate Zandile Moshololo, Mosia's colleague Tobeka Mhlalo, who also helped collect forensic evidence from the crime scene and was responsible for collecting fingerprints in particular, told the court she powdered the door the next day, but that there were no fingerprints to lift.
Did you take any fingerprints from that door? That powder, they investigate.
I powdered it, I did investigate the door.
Okay, did you receive the results?
His Pumos, I was Fuman. There were no prints with them.
The Bafana captain was killed in an apparent robbery at his then-girlfriend Kelly Kumala's home in October 2014. 5 men are currently on trial for the crime. So good news for consumers. The inflation rate has slowed to its lowest level in 2 years. This should affect the price of basic goods and your pockets. It's dropped to 4.7% for the month of July. Stats SA released last month's inflation and CPI statistics today, showing a significant decline in inflation. It says the drop can be attributed to a decrease in petrol and food prices.
A major upward driver of inflation, the transport category helped pull overall inflation down in July. The annual rate for fuel was a negative 16.8%. Food inflation has also eased. The annual rate for food and non-alcoholic beverages category was 9.9% in July, lower than June's print of 11%.
A crucial election in Zimbabwe that many hope will elicit change, but observers believe will not. 6.6 million Zimbabweans are voting for a new president and legislative leaders. It's the country's most important election since the 2017 coup, which ousted late long-time leader Robert Mugabe. Today's polls are going ahead without the participation of citizens in the diaspora. The lead up to the election has been marred by reports of violence and intimidation in several parts of the country. Opposition party Citizens Coalition for Change has also accused the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission of questionable conduct. They're hoping to use their popularity in the country's urban areas to ride a wave of discontent over the governing ZANU-PF's failures. Polling is supposed to close at 7 this evening, but it's likely to be extended due to delays at polling stations. And that's it from us today. See you for more tomorrow. Remember to like and subscribe.
Eyewitness News, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, log on to ewn.co.za or ewn.mobi.